do this just for a second while I kind of explain what's going on. So, for those of you watching on Twitch, hello everybody on Twitch. For those of you watching on YouTube, hello YouTube. What I have for you today is something pretty special that I don't think a lot of devs do. So, before I worked on Manny's pretty much full time, there was, believe it or not, a beta version of Manny's that you are about to see today. It is the very, very, very first version of Manny's. The very first one. And nobody else has ever seen this version of the game except me. I've never showed anybody this version. Um, the island in this version of the game is far bigger than the one in the actual game. The game is in third person camera. It's not an FPS game. And this version of the game got up to it got up to Manny's, I believe. After that, I ditched this particular version of the game in favor of making it on a far smaller island so that it could be a little bit manageable. I found that when I was making the island in this first version, there is a lot of jungle. It's a pretty big environment, it's pretty detailed. There are about 6 levels in this version. There isn't very much in terms of gameplay. There isn't very much at all in terms of dialogue. It's mostly just walking, pretty much. Now, I can finally get to actually showing you this version of the game that nobody else has seen before. So here it is. And okay, it did. Save that. I hope that you can hear the environmental sound effects, but this is it. This is the very first version of Manny's. So as you can see, it's actually like re-rendered in a PlayStation 1 style. It's third person. And this is Brian. He's got a flashlight on him, an actual physical flashlight. And it's a fixed camera angle. But yeah, the island was supposed to be much, much bigger, so as you can see, it's like massive. There's a lot of detail, a lot of foliage, a lot more trees. You can see the palm trees are the same. You can go over here, and if you try to go into the water, it's too dangerous to go back out there. And you can look at the raft. It's life raft. There's nothing of use in it. Yeah, unfortunately, Manny isn't in this version. So now if you go over here, it's a lot of jungle, really. It's pretty big. I like that you can hear the waves from the beach. That's really nice. But yeah, the island was supposed to be way, way bigger. But I found that the bigger I made the island, the more further away from my vision it got. And then as soon as I said to myself, well, I could just make the island like super, super small. Now there's just no more sound effects at all, I don't think, for the rest of this. So there's the dead woman. You might recognize her. There's a woman strapped to a seat. She's dead. So I used her on the raft in the original game, but she's she's in an airplane seat. in this version. Oh yeah, this is like a little Yui muddy pond type deal. And there was a secret up here that I put. You can come up here and go through the water. And I think there's just like blood. Yeah, there's blood everywhere. But yeah, I really like this environment though. A lot of time went into this. And then once you step over here, there's like the first cutscene. So if we go here, there's Brian. He's got his little flashlight. I've got to get out of this rain. What the hell was that? And see there, even the facial textures change as well. And this was where you're supposed to see Manny's, but he's on a cliff looking down at like the top of the trees and the rest of the jungle. So he says like, "What's that light?" And it's supposed to be Manny's in the trees. Like you can see the lights from the restaurant. Um, and then yeah, then there's an earthquake, and this was where I was gonna put uh a Manny sound effect, and his like he's kind of like moving around under the earth. And then Brian falls down. Yeah. And now this is sadly where the game ends, but there is no texture on the ground here. But it is a little bit dark. But it's a really nice environment, actually. So there's just like some jungle, there's some more like water on the ground here. Nice sunset. But yeah, it's really nice actually. I like the way the trees look against the sunset there. It looks really nice. And explaining like a little bit more of the lore here. There's a plane. There's an actual plane that I modeled, and it is stuck on top of the rocks there. And you have to find your flashlight, which is right below this airplane. And I had a jump scare here where when you collect the flashlight, yeah, the wheel falls off of the plane and makes like a loud sound. You can see it fell there. And it actually has like collision on it and everything. And once we get to this part, it's pretty much over. That's about it. That's it. That's all. Not very much. That's pretty much all I had to show. I know that's not a lot, but I figured as a kind of Christmas surprise that would be something that you guys would be interested in. That was the first ever iteration of Manny's. It was originally going to be that like Brian and that woman were on a plane that crashed, which is why I actually modeled the airplane seat and everything. So all that you see there was pretty much the lore at that time. Any old lore plans? Put it up there. Yeah, this right here. So this concept art that you see, that was pretty much the big one, where it says Manny holds up the island like Atlas. So originally what it was going to be was kind of like a huge room, like a big cave kind of around Manny, and it wasn't high enough for him to stand or to really move all that much. So he's kind of like crouched down a little bit, and he had his hand holding up the restaurant basically. Like his hand is directly under the restaurant, and that's like kind of how he got his power, was that he was actually like making physical contact with like the world above or whatever. Uh, I hadn't originally had a plane in mind for the final boss, and it was going to be um, you actually running as Brian around the perimeter of this cave all the way down to his feet. And that would be where you would plant explosives, and then, you would light the fuse, and then you'd have a set amount of time to run all the way back, while Manny's like throwing rocks at you or whatever. So, like, the boss fight was going to stay like it was going to be very, very static, right? It was just going to be a very static boss fight. Um, but then what ended up happening was I got the idea first to put Brian and Tyler in like a Jeep, is what it was going to be, with like a turret on it. And then it was, uh, I didn't want to model all the ground and everything, and I realized it would be a super big pain in the ass to make that. So then I got the idea for the plane, and mostly because I didn't have to model the ground, and I didn't have to model, like, Manny throwing rocks at you and shit. So that was pretty much why the plane came in, was because it was easy to just have two walls and a ceiling, and then the plane flying through it, and, you know, basically simulating that the walls, like that the plane is moving, but in reality, in Manny's itself, like in the final game, the boss fight is actually completely static. Nobody in that boss fight moves except Manny. The plane is actually still. It doesn't move at all, and the walls are animated to move, and they're animated to simulate a never ending cave structure, pretty much. That's what was originally planned. There wasn't too much, but I think the amount of work that I put in on that beta in particular was actually quite a bit, in terms of the pretty much just the environment. Like, nothing else really took long, but I'm pretty sure like some of those textures that I used aren't actually like copyright free. Every texture you see in the finished game is all copyright free. How long did it take? Well, actually, it was kind of funny because I opened up Unity today to build that version of the game, and it said that I worked on that 2 years ago. I hadn't opened it for 2 years, apparently. So, 2 years ago, I started it, and so that would have been in 2021 at some point. I built all of that, and then I got to a point where I needed to model the restaurant. So I stopped working on Manny's completely after that, for about maybe a year, maybe more. One night I was just kind of sitting there at home, and I was watching a movie, and all of a sudden in my mind, like, because the island was so big in that version, and I was getting so discouraged, and this thought popped into my mind: what if the island was just really, really small? And then I started working on it again, and I finished it all the way. So, yeah, the island that you see is the very first, the one and only iteration of the islands. There's no other version. I just made one version. I was like, okay, we need like one big spot where the restaurant can sit, one big flat spot. And then I made like the two other little wee islands and then put a couple of trees. And then I was like, okay, that's it. We're done. We did it. So I basically took all that stress of like overworking myself and making it overly complicated. I just threw it out the window, and that is eventually what allowed me to make the rest of the game. And then everything else after that was just spontaneous. Like all that hell, the like I knew that the characters were gonna go into hell, and I was originally gonna have like bodies and stuff, like dead people in there, and like skeletons in Japanese World War II uniforms and stuff. And I was gonna make Tyler like legitimately crazy. Like, yeah, what one of the gags that I had was that Tyler was actually like insane, like from being on the island for too long, just by himself. And his friends are literal dead people, and he would talk to them as if they were alive. And he gave them names like Bob and Jim and Dave because I was gonna have it that Brian finds Tyler talking to all of these dead people and he's like arguing with them. And Tyler himself has like dynamite strapped to his body, and he's like strapping it to himself while he's talking to these soldiers, and he's saying like, this is so fucked up, like, I can't believe this guy is coming into this restaurant and he's like chasing me and everything, and he's like playing the real victim. And all of a sudden he starts yelling at these dead people and saying like, shut the fuck up, Dave. And then the camera just pans over to this like dead, like this skeleton. So yeah. Yeah, there was a few things that didn't make it in there, but I'm I'm really glad that there was a lot from the original that made it in there. All of the stuff that you see in the cave, basically like the part where you pick up the rusted key, and like that room like with the generators, like right after you're done walking slowly through the water and you go up and you can find like the key and stuff. That was the part of the cave that I had in my mind for the longest amount of time. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff from my original imagining of Manny's actually did make it into Manny's. Yeah, Tyler talking to dead people, that was pretty funny. I liked that idea a lot, but then I thought, well, I don't want Tyler to be like fucking insane. I want him to actually have like a level head. He knows what's going on, but he's not incredibly crazy. He's just more or less, I don't know. He's passionate, let's say, very passionate. But I'm going to see about putting the soundtrack on Spotify because a whole bunch of people have asked for that. And I'm gonna do controller functionality at some point, but it's not gonna be now. It should be on Steam Deck once I get the controller stuff finalized and figured out. And then I'm going to try to put the game on Switch. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, that'll probably be the extent of Manny's. Because I don't want to be working on Manny's for the rest of my life. You guys have to understand that while I am not tired of the fans' reaction to Manny's, I love every time somebody talks about Manny's or praises Manny's in some way or makes fan art or whatever. While I am not tired of that aspect, I am tired of Manny's. I am exhausted with Manny's. I do not want to work on Manny's anymore. I am done. But as one more Christmas gift to you. I can't believe I'm doing this. As a super secret one-off Christmas gift for all of you, combined with, seeing the beta version of Manny's, I was going to show something a little bit more. Do not overreact to this. I know you probably will anyway, but don't get your hopes up. While I am not working on it at this moment, I have more than enough content in mind for Manny's 2. Now, don't get your hopes up right now because it's not being worked on. I have enough content in mind and written down that I could make another game already, but that's about it. Is there anything I can reveal? I'm going against my better judgment by showing you this because I was not going to do it, but fine. I'll give it up. And that's it. That's all you get to see. I don't know when it's going to happen, but hopefully at some point in the future. But I will tell you, it will be a long time before you see that game. So don't get your hopes up because it's not even nearly ready, obviously. Would I like to work on it? Absolutely. Is there enough in my brain to make it? Absolutely. Am I physically ready to make it? Nope. Nope. It's not ready to go yet. It may not even be my next project. Heck, it might not even be my third. Who knows? But just know that Manny's is not over. But yeah, that's about all I have. I showed way more than I wanted to. But yeah, as a New Year's resolution, it's going to be that I have to start treating game development as a proper job. So there needs to be a clear start at this time, take a lunch break, end at this time, and then leave it alone for the rest of the night because it's just going to get more and more and more unhealthy the more I work on it because I was literally working at max capacity for a human being. Like when I'm talking about starving to death because you don't want to get off the computer, that was me. So that's not healthy. So the New Year's resolution is to be more healthy about this. Uh, I don't know if I'm going to get another game out in 2024. I'd like to think so. I'm optimistic, but at this point, I don't know. But anyway, so if you're still watching on YouTube, thank you. I know I kind of went into a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, have a great night or a great day or whatever, and I'll see you in the next stream. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye bye now.